This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Bruchim Haba Meferchen Yom Tov. Thank you everyone for coming to the Simchas Beis HaShoeva this evening. We begin with the Gemara, Masechta Sukkah. It's actually a Mishnah. The Mishnah says in Masechta Sukkah, on Daf Memches, talks about the mitzvah of Nisach HaMayim. It says the mitzvah of Nisach HaMayim is for 8 days. And they would tell the person who poured the water on the Mizbech, they'd say, hey, pal, be careful. When you pour the water on the Mizbeach, make sure you pour it into the bowl and let everyone see you pour it into the bowl. But don't pour it onto your feet. Says the Mishnah, one time, a guy poured the Nisach HaMayim on his feet. Obviously this guy was a heretic. Obviously this guy did not believe in the Torah Shabbal Peh. We know Nisach HaMayim is not mentioned in any pasuk in the Chumash. Right? The Gemara in Tainis says, how do we know Nisach HaMayim? Bayom Hasheni Mem, Bayom Hashishi Yud, Bayom Hashvi Mem Mem Yud Mem, spells out Mayim. And therefore, when the person was Menasech, when the person poured, we said, be careful. Make sure you pour it into the bowl. And one time a guy poured it on his legs, and guess what the people did? They were so upset at him, says the Mishnah, Urgamu kol ha'am be'esrogein. The people stoned him with their esrogim. It's recording? It's REC? The people stoned him with their esrogim. They stoned him. Now that's a very interesting thing. They stoned him with their esrogim. I mean, they're trying to hurt him. And my experience is very interesting. You know, I got my kids all sets of lulav and esrog, but you can't leave anybody out, otherwise, they feel jealous. I find in my experience the lulav is much more dangerous than the esrog. Yeah? With the nanuim, there were much more injuries with the lulav than the esrog. So you want to injure someone, maybe the lulav would be better. Why dafka did they stone him with the esrog? In fact, the Gemara says later that the corner nifkama karnei hamizbeach, the corner of the mizbeach was breached. It was a little bit ruined. It was really cracked. You know why? Because they threw stones at him. So you want to hit someone, you throw a stone. Right? In Geula, on Kikar Shabbos, nobody's throwing esrogim. Right? You throw a stone. What's the inyan that they threw esrogim? Right? What's the inyan that they threw esrogim? Now, the Gemara in Yuma is medayek, a very interesting thing. That from here we see Nisach HaMayim is in the morning. Why? Because they did it at the time of the Esrog, and Esrog is only Bayayim, so therefore we see from here Nisach HaMayim is only Bayayim. From the fact that the Mishnah says Ragmu be'Esrogayim. But still, the Mishnah didn't have to say their Esrog, it could have said any of the Dalet Minim. Why does the Mishnah specifically say the Esrog? Okay, now the pasuk says about the Dalet Minim, Ulakachtem lachem ayem arishain, Pri Eitz Hadar, Kapos Tamarim, Va'anaf Eitz Avos, Va'arei Nachal. Take the Esrog, take the Lulav, take the Hadassim, take the Aravos, Usmachtem, and rejoice. Come on. Does it make you happy to shake your Lulav and Esrog? It makes you happy? You want to be happy? It should say, Va'oicha, Ve'ichlu basar lefnei Hashem alekeichem, or shasu yayin lefnei Hashem alekeichem. But exactly what kind of kick do you get? I mean, do you get more of a simcha of taking the down meaning than any of the other mitzvahs that the Torah says, usmachtem lefnei Hashem alekeichem? Okay. You ready? For those of you who stayed tonight, the hour is late, so you are privy to secrets, okay? Rabbeinu Bechaye tells us a big secret, a big side, and he says, the inyan of the Dalet Minim, he says in number 4, he says Rabbeinu Bechaye in Emor, Perek Chav Gimel, Pasuk Lamed Tes, he said, V'sheyatilu bai mitzvahs halulav lechaper al kilkulai shel avinu harishain. The purpose of the Dalet Minim is to be mechaper for the sin of the Itzadas. We know Baruch Hashem created Adam Harishain on Friday, on Rosh Hashanah. Hashem says, do whatever you want. You don't have to keep the Torah. Just do me a favor. Don't eat from the fruit. And Adam Harishon ate from the fruit. So in order to rectify the sin of Adam Harishon, we have a mitzvah to take the Lulav and Esrog, which is basically about the same time of the year anyway, because Adam Harishon sinned on Rosh Hashanah. It's only 2 weeks later. So therefore we take the Dalet Minim to Mechaper for the sin of Adam Harishon. But very interesting. What does one thing got to do with the other? How by taking the Daled Minim, how is it mechaper for the sin of the Itzadas? What do the Daled Minim have to do with the Itzadas? And by the way, this idea is mentioned in many sources. The Rabbi Ephraim Zalman Margolis writes, very interesting. What is the word right before pre-Eitz Hadar? What do you mean take on the first day? It's not the first day, it's the 15th day of the month. What does the Medrash say on that word? That the first day of Sukkos is called what? Rishain l'cheshbon aveinos. It's the first day God begins to calculate aveiros. Because once we have Yom Kippur, there are no more sins. Your slate is wiped clean. So the first day you could sin is what? Sukkos. And all the Mefarshim ask, the first day you could sin is the 11th day of Tishrei. But still, Sukkos is known as Rishain l'cheshbon aveinos. It's the first day you could sin. Says Rabbi Ephraim Zalman Margolis, you know what it means, Rishain l'cheshbon aveinos? Why do you take the Esrog? Because of Adam HaRishain, what did he do? What he did was Rishain l'cheshbon aveinos. What Adam HaRishain did was the first Aveira that was ever counted by God. That's what it means. L'kachtem l'chem l'yom HaRishain, Rishain l'cheshbon aveinos. What was the first Avain? That was Nechshav, the sin of the Itzadas. And by the way, Rabbeinu Bechai elaborates that Adam HaRishain only sinned with the Itzadas. So we dafka take the Esrog and we put it together with the Lulav. The Lulav somehow is the Eitz HaChayim. Also, very interesting idea. Rav Yaakov Emden writes about this in his Siddur, in his introduction to the mitzvah of Lulav and Esrog. This is also elaborated in the Sefer Ir Miklat. Now I'm going to tell you something, because without you, I would have no one to talk to. So I have to tell you something very interesting. The Sefer Ir Miklat is a very unknown Sefer. It was written by Rav David Lida. Rav David Lida is virtually unknown. Rav David Lida was a nephew of Rav Moshe Rivkes. Rav Moshe Rivkes was the author of the Be'er HaGoyla. If you look in the Shulchan Aruch, he gives you annotations and sources for the halachas of the Shulchan Aruch. Rav David Lida was the Rav of Amsterdam. He was accused of being a follower of Shabtai Tzvi. And he had to leave his post. They ousted him. The Vad La'arba Aratzos got together and they cleared his name. But just because your name is cleared, they're not taking you back so fast. He couldn't get the job back. He wrote a sefer called Migdal David, Commentary on Megillas Rus. Rav Yaakov Emden writes in the sefer Torah's Haknois, Torah's Haknois, on page Ayin Aleph Amud Beis. He says like this, that this sefer is plagiarized. Rav Yaakov Emden criticized Rav David Lida of plagiarizing the sefer. The Chida in his sefer Shem HaGdolim clears Rav David Lida from this accusation, because he says if you look clearly in the introduction to Rav David Lida's commentary to the Migdal David, he writes, you know where I got it from? He says, Mimekar Chayim Kahana Rabba. So if someone doesn't read that carefully, he would think it means he got it from a wellspring of life. In other words, he got it from his Torah knowledge. No. He got it from Rav Chaim Cohen. Chaim Cohen was the author of Torah Barekas. His name was Chaim Cohen. He was a Kohen. And Rav David Lida is acknowledging the fact that this sefer he gained and he understood and he copied it from the sefer of Rav Chaim Cohen. So he didn't plagiarize it. He writes explicitly that where he got it from. Okay, so the Chida clears him. But he brings up the same idea, that the purpose of the Daled Minim is to rectify the sin of Adam HaRishon. Now what does one thing got to do with the other, right, Sammy? What are Daled Minim? Just because Adam HaRishon ate from the Itzadas, so how, it's one thing if we take the Itzadas, but just because we take these 4 species and we shake them, how does that rectify the sin of Adam HaRishon? It's not like Adam HaRishon shook the Itzadas. Adam HaRishon just, he ate from it. Well, what does one thing got to do with the other? Fasten your seatbelts. There is a feature and a facet of Esrog that no other fruit in the world enjoys. There's a certain phenomenon about the Esrog that is different than any other fruit. Every other fruit in the world Doesn't matter where it grows. It could grow in America, it could grow in Russia, it could grow in Afghanistan. They're all the same. The fruit tastes good, the bark doesn't. The tree, you can't eat. You can't eat the table, you can't eat the tree. You could eat the fruit. But there's one fruit that you could eat the fruit, and the bark and the tree also taste good, and that's the esrog. Because Chazal say on the pasuk, pre-eitz hadar, a fruit and a tree that's beautiful. Now, a fruit is beautiful, it tastes good. How is a tree beautiful? The answer is the tree of the esrog, you could bite into it and it tastes like an esrog. It's the what?
All of them are supposed to be like this, all the trees?
That's how it's supposed to be. It's the only fruit. It's the, what?
The only fruit that didn't sin?
We didn't say anything about sinning yet. The esrog is the only fruit that the bark tastes like the fruit. Now, there's another facet of the esrog that's unique, that it's the only fruit in the world that has the following feature. The Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos on Daf Peiches Amud Aleph. Amar Rav Chama Rabbi Chanina, number 9. Mai dichsev, what does the pasuk mean? Ketapuach ba'atzei hayar. That Klal Yisrael, Hashem says, is like an apple in a forest. Kein rayasi ben abanos. Hashem says, you Jews, to me, you're like apples. Right? What's apple stock at now? It's very expensive. No, that's not what he means, right? You Jews are like apple. An apple. Ketapuach. What's a tapuach? An apple. Why is Klal Yisrael like the apple? Just like the apple, the fruit grows before its leaves. So too Klal Yisrael said, Nasa before Nishma. Just like the apple is the only fruit that the fruit grows before its leaves, every other fruit in the world, first the leaves grow and then the fruit. The apple is the only fruit in the world, ever, that first the fruit grows and then the leaves grow.
The apple, the esrog.
The apple says, tapuach is an apple. And the Gemara says, just like Klal Yisrael said, Nasa before Nishma. So I ask you a question. Okay, and I get it. Nasa v'nishma is out of order. But what's the comparison? Just like Nasa v'nishma is out of order, an apple is out of order. We need to come up with an apple as a mashal for something that's out of order. I know a lot of things in this world that are backwards, that could serve as a mashal to Nasa v'nishma. The one thing the Gemara says, you know what Klal Yisrael saying Nasa v'nishma is like? Like the apple, because the apple grows with the fruit before the leaf. That's the only thing in the world that grows backwards. But Tosfos asks even a better question. Tosfos says, Nishka shtoiben, nishka floigen. It's not true. The apple tree, it says Tosfos, I saw apple trees. Not one apple tree in the world does the fruit ever grow before the leaf. Every apple tree, the leaf grows before the fruit. So what's the Gemara saying? That Klal Yisrael is like the apple tree. They're just like the apple tree, the fruit goes before the leaf, so too guys says in Mishnah. It's not true! The fruit doesn't grow before the leaf goes before the leaf. Says Tosfos. When the Gemara says tapuach, it doesn't mean apple. It refers to the esrog. It refers to the esrog. Because if you look at the Targum on the words, V'reach apecha kitapuchim, Targum says ke'esroga. Says Rabbeinu Tam. The Rosh says, was God b'chachmu v'minyan mikol harishayim. Yeah? So Rabbeinu Tam is saying that it's not an apple where the fruit grows before the tree. It's the esrog. Okay, so listen. That means there are two features of the esrog. There are two unique features of the esrog that no other fruit has. Number one, the bark tastes like the fruit. Number two, the fruit grows before the leaves. Very interesting, no? Isn't it interesting that every other fruit in the whole world, they're all the same. Apples, oranges, cherries, mangoes, they're all the same. All fruits are the same. Except the esrog. Esrog has two things that are different. Number one, the bark tastes like the fruit. And number two, the fruit grows before the leaves. Is it just coincidental that the esrog has these two unique features? Or perhaps, is there some common denominator? Is there a tzad HaShoeva between these two features? The fact that the fruit grows before the leaves, and the fact that the bark tastes like the fruit. Or it just happens to be that the Esrog is strange in two ways. By the way, the Gemara continues. There's once a Tzeduki who saw Rava, and Rava was sitting on his hand. He was crushing his hand, and he was gushing blood. So the Tzeduki says to Rava, "Ama Paziza, you're a impatient nation. You're have no patience. Your mouth comes before your mind. You should have asked Hashem. You should have said to Hashem, Hashem, first tell me what it says in the Torah, and then I'll decide if I want to keep it or not." And not only were you impatient then, not only were you impetuous then, you're impetuous now. That's why you're acting without any thought now. You sit and learn, and you're crushing your hand. So just like you were backward back then, you're backward today. Listen carefully to what Rava says. Rava says, no. We walk b'shleimus. Like the pasuk says, Tumas Yesharim Tanchim. We walked wholeheartedly. Yashrus, straightness. But you walk with crookedness. In other words, we have simple faith in God. If God tells us to do something, we don't have to ask, yeah, but what does it say in the Torah? And then we're thinking, is it going to be good? Is it not going to be good? No, we just walk wholeheartedly. Okay? Bear that in mind. Somehow, that midah of saying Nasa before Nishma is comparable to the Esrog, where the fruit grows before the leaf. The Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos, Oivdei Kechavim, why do they have Zuhama? What's Zuhama? Anybody know what Zuhama is? Zuhama is a kind of poison. It's a kind of internal impurity. Filth. Impurity. Goyim have it, Jews don't have it. You know why? Says the Gemara, when Adam sinned by the Itzadas, all of mankind became impurified with Zuhama. We all became Zuhama filled. If you stick a Zuhama thermometer in somebody, it would register that this person has a lot of Zuhama in them. But Klal Yisrael, when they stood on Har Sinai, their Zuhama was removed. Goyim never stood on Har Sinai, their Zuhama was not removed. So the question is, what in the world is this Zuhama? And how was it removed when the Torah was given? Again, it's a certain impurity, a certain tumah. Where did it come from? And how did we get rid of it when the Torah was given? That's what the Gemara says. But what is the Zuhama? Okay, you ready? Get ready for it. Get a load of this. Let's go to Parshas Bereishis. Does anybody know what is this week's Parsha? This week's Parsha is Parshas Bereishis. So good news is you're not behind yet in being Maver Sedra. Okay? Right now you're up to date. Okay? Parshas Bereishis. Hashem says to the vegetation. Vayomer Elikim, God says, Tadshe haaretz desha. Let the land proliferate with herbage. Esev mazria zera. Grass producing seeds. Eitz peri, fruit, trees, oisa pri, producing fruit. Vas meint. What does it mean? Eitz peri, oisa pri. Fruit, trees producing fruit. If you're a fruit tree, you obviously produce fruit. What's eitz peri, oisa pri? It should say eitz oisa pri, trees producing fruit. What eitz pri, fruit trees, oisa pri? Says Rashi.
The tree was
Eitz peri, the tree should taste like the fruit. Oisa peri, and it should produce fruit. When God created the trees, His command was that every tree should taste like fruit. Eitz peri, the tree should taste like fruit. Oisa peri, and it should produce fruit. Says Rashi, V'hi lo yasas kain. It didn't listen. The trees didn't listen. The pasuk says.
The land didn't listen.
Well, one second. Ela v'toitze haaretz eitz oisa peri. Right?
The Adamah didn't listen.
Right. So the land didn't listen. The tree didn't listen. They didn't follow the command of Hashem. Yeah. Instead of eitz peri oisa peri, what does it say? V'toitze haaretz ve'eitz oisa peri. So here. Imagine you're a tree. Listen, tree. Just follow my directions. Yeah. I want you to taste like a fruit and produce fruit. Azoy, the tree says, you want me to? I'll let you know what I want to do. And the tree didn't listen. The tree produced fruit, but didn't taste like fruit. And, says Rashi, therefore, when Adam was punished for his sin, Hashem cursed the land together with Adam. Hashem said, Arura Adama Bavarecha. Very interesting. When the trees didn't listen to God, when the land didn't listen to God, what did God do to it? Nothing. But when Adam sinned, Hashem said, well, once I'm in the mood of punishing Adam, I'll get the land together with Adam. Either the land should be punished or not. If it should, then Hashem should have punished it straight up. And if it shouldn't, why is Hashem only punishing it together with Adam Arishon? And what does it mean? The trees didn't listen to Hashem. Why didn't they listen to Hashem? Says the Shlach HaKadosh. Look at number 16, on the second paragraph, third line. Ube'emes haaretz chashva l'toiva. Oh. They had good kavana. V'savra mitzvah ka'avda. Like every avarian in the world, the tree thought it was doing a mitzvah. So the Shloh explains, Al Pi Kabbalah, what was the mitzvah that it thought it was doing? So the tree said, look, Hashem created light. But Hashem had to put away part of the light because He didn't want the Rishonim to enjoy the light. So Hashem hid the light for the tzaddikim la'asalavai. Yeah, but they were coming. They were coming fast and furious. Yeah? So the tree said, the light doesn't want to be around for the Rishon, neither do we. So you know what? We'll put ourselves away. Our bark won't taste like fruit, because we don't want the Rishon to eat it. Okay. Comes a Chizkuni, half of a fella. You ready? Chizkuni on the Rishonim. He says like this. He says, these trees, they're good guys. They're Elicha guys. God-fearing trees, God-fearing grass. They're always shuckling with the grass, right? They're God-fearing. Yeah? You ever see grass standing still? They're always behislavos, right? So, the proof is God never told the grass to proliferate laminai by their kind. And even though Hashem didn't command them to do that, they did it anyway. So we see they want to do what Hashem wants. Says the Chizkuni, ready for this? Their kavanah was like this. God told the fruits and the trees, Pruravu, spread, proliferate, have more descendants. So the tree says, I don't understand. If my bark and my tree is going to taste like fruit, then how will I ever have descendants? Because guess what? Just like people will eat the fruit, they're going to eat the bark also. They're going to eat the eights also. So if they can eat the eights also, we'll never be able to reproduce. So it's not going to be eights. How can we be pruravu? How can we proliferate? So listen to what the Rebbeinu Shalom did. So listen to what the trees did. The tree said, I know Rebbeinu Shalom said eights pri, oise pri. But Rebbeinu Shalom did it for a reason. Well, why would the Rebbeinu Shalom want me to produce fruits and to taste like fruit? The Rebbeinu Shalom wanted there to be more fruits in the world. There are more trees in the world. So the tree said, the tree was an Ibra Chacham. The tree said, it would be better if I don't listen to Hashem fully. In order to listen to Hashem, I have to not listen to Hashem. So the tree made a cheshbon. The tree said, I know Hashem wants me to reproduce and reproduce and reproduce. So therefore what I'm going to do is, I'll produce fruits, but my bark won't taste like a fruit. This way there'll be more trees in the world. Because if you really want to be a tzaddik and listen to Hashem, you have to understand why Hashem commanded us to be eitz pri oisa pri. And therefore, the kavana, says the Chizkuni, the kavana of the trees was the shem shamayim. In order to produce more, in order for there to be more fruits, you can't taste like a fruit if you're a tree.
They didn't scare that they're going to make them chairs.
So why? So ask the Chizkuni, so why did Hashem punish the trees? Says the Chizkuni, very interesting words. Behade kavshi drachmana lamali. Trees, none of your business why Hashem commanded you. Don't be an Ibra Chacham. Don't outsmart. Don't be too smart. The Rebbeinu Shalom said, follow instructions. The instructions are, taste like a fruit, produce fruit. Yeah, but Hashem said taste like fruit, produce fruit in order to spread. No. Don't start analyzing and figuring out why Hashem commanded. You do what you're told. Don't make cheshbonos. The Rebbe Shalom says to do something, follow instructions. Right? You ever tell somebody to do something for you? They did. Why do you do it like this? But I thought it would be better this way. Hey, pal, I told you what to do. Just follow instructions. Don't do it your way. Do what I told you. That's the midah that the trees were lacking. Tamimos. The midah of tamimos. Just wholeheartedly follow the Ratzon Hashem.
But how the Adamah Chatan?
No, it was the Adama, the trees that came from the Adam. Okay. So listen to this. There's a big secret. Okay? If you were a tree, okay? I'm not saying you're a tree, but if you were a tree, right? If you were you produce fruits and leaves. What would you produce first? A fruit or a leaf? What do you do?
We wasn't told about the leaf. We only told about a fruit.
So it's very interesting. We don't find anywhere in any medrash or any Gemara what the role of a fruit is, what the role of a leaf is. In the Sefer Malos Torah of the brother of the Vilna Gaon, Agav Orcha, he points out something very interesting. That what is the function of a leaf on a tree? The leaf protects the fruit. Is a shomer on the fruit. It's a shmira on the fruit. You have an insect, the leaf covers the fruit. You have a bird, you have a worm. The leaf is the shomer of the pri. So if you were a tree, would you produce fruits first, or would you produce leaves first? Of course you would produce leaves first. You need a shomer. You don't bring a treasure to your house. You don't bring a treasure to your house unless you first have a house. Oh no, you don't have a treasure until you have a guard. Otherwise it's going to be removed, it's going to be taken away. So therefore, very interesting. Most fruits in the world, what comes first? First comes the leaf, and then comes the fruit. First, why? That's the logical way to do it. You have the shomer, and you have the pri. And that's what every single fruit in the world does. That's what every single tree in the world does. There's one exception. The Esrog is the only exception. Why? Because when Hashem told the fruits that the eitz pri oisa pri, that it's not enough to produce fruits, but the bark has to taste like a fruit, and every other tree in the world made cheshbonos and said, well, Hashem only told us to do this because He wants fruits in the world, so it's better if the bark doesn't taste. So the Esrog, right, every fruit in the world made a cheshbon, made a calculation. The Esrog didn't make any cheshbonos. The Esrog said, Hashem said, eitz pri oisa pri. The Esrog said, I follow the command as is. I take my orders at face value. The Esrog is the only fruit that the fruit grows before the tree. You know why? Because Hashem told the Esrog, produce fruit. So now the Esrog is going to start making cheshbonos. First I'm going to make a leaf to make a production, and then I'm going to produce a fruit. Of course not. The Esrog takes orders at face value. Hashem says produce fruit, the Esrog produces fruit. It's every other tree in the world, they make cheshbonos. We're not going to do eitz pri oisa pri. What are we going to do? We're going to make eitz oisa. We're going to make eitz oisa pri. So it comes out that the two unique features of the Esrog are one midah. And the midah is, while every other fruit in the world made calculations and try to figure out what's going to be better for me it's going to be better if I don't taste like a fruit. For me it's going to be better if the leaf comes before the fruit. The Esrog follows orders at face value. Thank you very much. The Esrog follows orders at face value. It's the midah of tamimos of the Esrog. That is why it produced eitz pri oisa pri. It just followed the words of Hashem without making cheshbonos, and that is why it grows with the fruit before the leaf. It's the same midah. It's the same characteristic. The characteristic of tamimos, of following the Ratzon of Hashem without being an Iber Chacham. So very interesting.
But Rabbi, isn't only human being has a free choice?
No, we see in many cases in Ma'aseh Bereshis that the Sar or the Malach that represented the various things that were created apparently had some kind of free choice whether to what? Yeah. Okay. So Rabbi say, so listen to this. This is an amazing thing. So it comes out that the Esrog is the only fruit that has this midah of tamimos, of not having to make cheshbonos. Will it work out? Will it not work out? Does it make sense for me? Does it not make sense for me? That is why the Gemara says that when Hashem offered the Torah to Klal Yisrael and they said Nasa v'nishma, what fruit are they comparable to? The Esrog. Why? Not just because Klal Yisrael did things backward, just like the Esrog does things backwards. No. It's the midah of the Esrog. When Hashem offered the Torah to the Jewish people, they didn't say, let's make cheshbonos. Does it work into my schedule? Does it not work into my schedule? Is it easy? Is it hard? Is it convenient? Is it not convenient? Klal Yisrael said, if the Creator of the world is presenting us with this body of information, it's for our benefit. The midah of tamimos. That is why they are compared to the Esrog. Not just because the Esrog grows in a different way. It's because the Esrog has this midah of tamimos, of perfection, of not questioning the will of Hashem. Okay? Let's come back to the sin of the Itzadas. Okay? If we had a pinpoint, what was the sin of the Itzadas? What did Adam HaRishon do wrong? What was the underlying problem with what he did? In the Chumash, it doesn't really identify it. That's always troublesome. But it says like this. There's a pasuk in Koheles. Listen carefully. Look at number 21. Levad re'ezeh matzasi. Except, look what I found. Asher asa ha'alekim es ha'adam yashar. God made man straight. Vehema bikshu. But they seek cheshvonos rabim, many calculations. Very interesting pasuk. God made man straight, but man perverted himself. Man made himself crooked. Man searches for cheshvonos rabim. Says Rashi, which man did God make yashar? Adam. But when Adam was by himself, he was a yashar. But vehema. But when he became Hema, when there was another party involved, then why did he eat from the tree? Hema bikshu cheshvonos rabim. He started making all kinds of cheshbonos. Why? Even though Hashem said not to eat from the Itzadas, but really it's because of this, and if I eat from it, it will be better off, and really Hashem would want me. The only reason he commanded me not to eat from it is because he didn't think. But Adam HaRishon made, if you look in Rabbi Yonasan, he made a whole cheshbon. He made a whole calculation. But what?
Wasn't he tricked?
He was tricked, but why did he succumb? Why did he fall for it? He came up with a rationalization. He came up with a cheshbon. He came up with a calculation. But bottom line is, what in the Navi, in the Tanakh, what does it identify? The problem of Adam HaRishon? The problem was Hema Bikshu Cheshvonos Rabim. He became an Iber Chacham. He outsmarted, so to speak. He's going to outsmart the Rebbe Hashem. He's going to make all kinds of complex calculations. So now we understand. Now we understand. What was the sin of the trees? The sin of the trees was, according to the Chizkuni, they didn't listen to Hashem. Why? Why did they listen to Hashem? Because they made all kinds of cheshbonos. They made a cheshbon. What was the cheshbon? The cheshbon was, well, if we don't make eitz pri or pri, we'll be able to proliferate. We'll be able to mekayim the tzivah Hashem greater. So Hashem said that avera in and of itself, I'll let it go. But now Adam HaRishon is learning from you. Now Adam Rishon takes your example to be making these cheshbonos, and he sins with the Itzadas. So Hashem says, when I punish Adam, I punish you along with it. Because it's the same common thread. However, there's one fruit that was immune to this problem. The Esrog. The Esrog was above and beyond these cheshbonos. The Esrog followed the order, Eitz Pri, Oiseh, Pri. The Esrog grows the Pri before the Olim, the fruit before the branches. And that could be why, Rabbi say. Does anybody know? What was the Itzadas? So there are different opinions. You know, when you drink wine, so you give your friend a bracha. What bracha do you give your friend? L'chaim. Why l'chaim? Because there's an opinion Itzadas was yayin. And that brought misa la'olam. So now when you drink wine, you say, we hope this wine won't bring misa la'olam, we hope this will bring l'chaim. That's why some people are makbid to drink schnapps. Because there's a shita, there's chita. Right? There's a chita. So if there's chita, you have to say l'chaim when you drink schnapps also. But Rabbi say, the Medrash says, there's an opinion, the Itzadas was an Esrog. You know why? And how we know it was an Esrog? Because the pasuk says, Batera ha'isha, the woman saw, Kitov ha'etz l'macha. The eitz was good. What tree is not only the Pri good, the eitz is also good? The Esrog. So it comes out, the Esrog... No, the Tena, the eitz tastes like eitz. Doesn't taste like...
It wasn't part of the opinion that
There's another opinion of Tena also, yeah.
Then why didn't Hashem make the same question as Esrog did? Just follow what...
Why do you think the one fruit that Hashem told Adam not to eat was the Esrog? Hashem was trying to teach Adam a lesson. He's saying, Adam, you're going to start making cheshbonos why you should eat this fruit? No. Learn the lesson of the fruit. The lesson of the fruit is, Eitz Pri Oiseh Pri, follows orders. This is a fruit that doesn't make cheshbonos. Hashem was lending the fruit the ability to do what? To teach Adam not to succumb, not to make the cheshbonos. Okay. So it comes out very beautiful. The two features of the Esrog really stem from one midah. And now we understand why this midah of the Esrog, that the fruit grows before the leaves, reflects Nasa v'nishma. It's not just, Nasa v'nishma is out of order. Fruit before leaves is out of order. No, the midah of Nasa v'nishma is tamimos, don't make too many calculations. Follow what Hashem commands without trying to outsmart Him. Okay. What is this Zuhama? And how did we correct it by standing at Har Sinai? Okay, let's try to explain this briefly. Maybe I always thought that when Hashem gave us the Torah purified us from this impurity, this poison. But yet, the Marsha, Masechta Avodah Zarah, tells us to look the commentary of the Kolbai on the Haggadah. Kolbai is a Rishon, we don't know who wrote it. The Kolbai says on the words, Ilu Kervenu Lefnei Har Sinai. Had God brought us before Har Sinai, V'lei nasan lanu as Torah, without giving us the Torah, Dayenu, it would have been enough. Yeah? The question is, what benefit is there to go to Har Sinai and not get the Torah? That's like, Rabbi, if I came tonight and I didn't even hear a shiur, it would have been enough. Of course, because you had a big meal. Right? But if you came to Har Sinai and you didn't learn Torah, they weren't serving food at Har Sinai. So what benefit do we get? Says the Kolbai, says the Avodram, just being at Har Sinai would have rid them of the impurity. So you see from there that it wasn't the giving of the Torah that rid them of the impurity. It was merely standing there on Har Sinai that rid them of the impurity. Just being on that holy occasion. So the question is, at what moment of that holy occasion did it rid them of the impurity? Rashi says, Masechta Avodah Zarah, that when they stood on Har Sinai, Rashi says, they were fixed and corrected from any mum. Not when the Torah was given, when they stood on Har Sinai. Rashi, Avodah Zarah, Beis and Beis. The Medrash says, you know when they were corrected from every mum? When they said Nasa v'nishma. So putting two and two together. At what moment of time were they cleansed from their Zuhama, from their impurity? Not when they got the Torah. Because it says, had Hashem brought us Har Sinai and not given us the Torah, we still would have been cleansed from impurity. So at what moment of Har Sinai would we have been cleansed of our impurity? Apparently, the Medrash says, when we said Nasa v'nishma, at that moment, Hashem healed all of our mumin. And Rashi and Avodah Zarah says, the moment we were healed from our mumin, we were rid from our impurity. That means that when Klal Yisrael said Nasa v'nishma, their Zuhama was gone. Not when they got the Torah. They didn't need the Torah to get rid of their filth and their impurity. When they said Nasa v'nishma, that's when their impurity was gone. How does saying Nasa v'nishma rid them of the impurity? You ready? Where did the impurity come from? The Itzadas. What caused them to sin? Vehema, bikshu, chishvainos, rabim. The poison in them was this scheming, planning, plotting, always making cheshvainos. And we all know about ourselves that often when we do the wrong thing, we have all kinds of complicated rationalizations and complex explanations for what we do. We make cheshvainos. That was the impurity. That was the tumah. That's the zuhama. What corrected it? Nasa v'nishma. What's Nasa v'nishma? No cheshbainos. No calculations. God, you gave us the Torah. We'll do it. We're not going to even ask what it says in it. Tamimos. No cheshbainos. The impurity was v'hema bikshu cheshbainos rabim. How did we rid ourselves of that? Nasa v'nishma is the exact opposite of v'hema bikshu cheshbainos rabim. So here we have, what is the Esrog then? The Esrog is the midah of tamimos. The midah of God, the way God created man before the sin. God created man before the sin. How? Yashar. Without cheshbainos. And there's only one fruit that stayed that way. That's the Esrog. No cheshbainos. It remains eitz pri oisa pri. It's a pri eitz hada. That is why, says Rav David Cohen, taking the Esrog is the tikkun for the sin of the Itzadas. The sin of the Itzadas was v'hema bikshu cheshvainos rabim. What's the sin? The sin was, Adam HaRishon was scheming, why coming up with rationalizations, why it's okay really to eat from the fruit, even though Hashem said, but under these circumstances he didn't really mean it. Of course you're not allowed to do it. The Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to do it. But under these circumstances, for me and my situation, and for me it's a mitzvah, of course, right? That's what we do, right? That's the biggest trick, the oldest trick in the book. Of course you're not allowed to. But for me, in my circumstances, on this situation, Hashem, the Shulchan Aruch wasn't talking to me. That was the sin of the Itzadas. So what do we do to rectify that? We emphasize the Esrog. The Esrog is the only fruit that does what? Eitz pri oisa pri. Follows the command of Hashem. Beli cheshbainos. Didn't make the cheshbon. But how am I going to produce? Right? Why did every tree in the world not taste like fruit? Because they made a calculation that how will they'll become endangered species. What did the Esrog say? It's not my problem. God told me how to be, I'll be that way. He'll decide whether I'll be endangered or not. The way to correct the sin of the Itzadas is to emphasize the midah of the Esrog. What midah is that? What does the Gemara compare the Esrog to? Nasa v'nishma. Just like Klal Yisrael said, Nasa v'nishma, they're like the Esrog where the fruit comes before the leaf. It doesn't say, well, if Hashem wants me to grow, then I have to develop leaves before my fruit. No. The midah of the Esrog is beli cheshbainos. Very interesting. When Rava explains his behavior of sitting on his hand and learning without making any cheshbainos, he says, what midah is this? Tumas yesharim tanchim. The midah of yashrus. How is not making cheshbainos yashrus? Answers we see in the pasuk. Halakim asa adam yashar. Yashar means without making cheshbonos. The Hema Bikshu cheshbonos Rabbi. The midah of Yashrus, the midah of straightness, is not to make corrupt calculations. That's the midah of Yashrus. That was what Rabbi was emphasizing. The midah of Nasav and Ishma is the midah of Yashrus. That's the Esrog. The Esrog is going back to Adam before the Chet of Halakim, Asa as Ha'adam, Yashar. Okay, one last step. Why does the Esrog make us happy? If there is one midah in Tanakh that we find engenders simcha, it's the midah of Yashrus. Pekudei Hashem blank mesamchei lev. Know that pasuk? Pekudei Hashem yesharim. God's mitzvahs are straight. Mesamchei lev. Create simcha. Oyer zaru al tzadik. Blank simcha. Ule yishrei lev simcha. In order to have happiness in this world, you can't be crooked. If you're crooked, your own psyche detects that you're not real. And it's hard to feel joy. Joy comes from straightness, being a straight shooter. Pekudei Hashem Yesharim Nesamchei Lev Arzara Lat Tzadik Uli Yishrei Lev. Yashrus brings to Simcha. And therefore, the Esrog, which is the midah of Tumas Yesharim Tanchem Nasav and Ishma, the midah of Alekim Asa As Ha'adam Yashar. What does it mean? Why was Adam HaRishon so happy in Gan Eden? You know why? Because Alekim Asa Es Ha'adam Yashar. When you're Yashar, you're happy. That's the happiness of the Esrog. The Esrog reminds you Alekim Asa Es Ha'adam. But the Tzeduki, Rava said to the Tzeduki, what? You guys are crooked. You guys are full of calculations. The Tzedukim say, yeah, the mitzvahs are not for our times. They're archaic, they're ancient. The Tzedukim are malei cheshbonos. So how do we attack the Tzedukim? We take the Esrog. The Esrog are beli cheshbon, pri eitz, pri tam eitz, tam pri shavin. The fruit grows before the leaves. We say to the Tzeduki, you're a corrupt mechashev. You have all kinds of devious schemes and cheshbonos. We don't throw rocks at you. We throw esrogim at you. The esrog is the nasav and ishma. The esrog is the yashrus. And that's how we teach the lesson to the tzeduki. Because very interesting, the Mishnah didn't say the guy was a tzeduki. But if you look on the bottom of the page on the Gemara, in number 40, the Gemara says, Tana Rabbana Maisa b'tzeduki achad. He wasn't just a regular guy, he's a tzeduk. Oh, tzeduki! We know those tzedukim. Rava said, we have the midah of Nasav Nishma Yashrus. Tzedukim are molei cheshbonos. So we bomb the tzedukim. Not with tomatoes, not with potatoes, with esrogim. And we teach the tzeduki that if you want to be happy in this world, you have to go back to Kisamechacha, Yitzircha, Began Eden, Mikedem, Halakim, Asa Es Ha'adam Yashar. Pikudei Hashem Yesharim Nesamchei Lev Afrei Lechem Yom Tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.